welcome to this week's Sam versus Lee with us, Lee and Sam from the FPL Family. Hope you're all well and had good game week 28.
Did anyone have a good game week 28?
No, the lowest scoring average of the season so far.
It was tough, wasn't it? It was tough. So many phantom injuries that... Please, come on, Premier League managers, tell us about these injuries in the press conferences. Don't just wait till the day, Vardy and Ings.
You know what it is, don't you?
Go on.
They all want to get one up on their mini-league rivals.
That's exactly what it is.
So,
That's
like,
exactly
Brendan Rodgers is like, no, I'm not telling them about Vardy because then I'll transfer him out, bring in Jimenez or Jota
Hassan
or one of
Hootel
those.
Not got Ings in his fancy team.
Exactly,
obviously.
that's
yes,
what's going on.
Yeah.
All right, so in terms of last week then, we had a theme from James McKay who
Good one,
said...
this.
Yeah,
Good
it
one.
was
difficult actually.
Yeah, really hard.
Tough.
So that it was players that blanked in the last 3 matches. So, you know, players that weren't exactly on great form.
Out of form, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And
so no surprise we got the result we got.
Yeah, so, you know, not our greatest triumph ever, particularly given that before we'd even kind of finished and before Andy from Let's Talk FPL had even edited our last video from last week, one of your players was out injured.
Well, we shot the video during Chelsea versus Bayern Munich in the Champions League, and we more or less was like, yep, we're done, send it off to Andy to be edited, ready to load onto the Fantasy Football Scout YouTube channel, and no sooner had I left the room in which we record to go and watch the end of the Chelsea game than Abraham limped off, right? And I thought, well, is he going to be fit? Is he not? But it was always a risk.
He was.
But I knew that when I picked him.
And then, of course, I picked Jamie Vardy, who on Friday night we had the, is he not, is he not, oh no, he's not in the squad, he's
Tell me,
his
was
car.
that one of the best or one of the worst FPL moments of the season? Because it was one of the best because it got the community buzzing, but it was also one of the most frustrating for Vardy owners, wasn't it?
I feel like it's one of those moments, isn't it, where when you look back across the end of the season, there's going to be a few pivotal moments with these FPL teams. That's one of them. Managed injury in the double, that's another one. There's a few that are kind of just starting to really, you know, and it wasn't just Abraham and Vardy that we've talked about. You know, you mentioned Danny Ings already.
Yeah.
Hugo Lloris was the same. We had no warning that he was.
We're getting our excuses in early here, aren't we?
So yeah, so not the best game week. So we were already down to 2 players each anyway.
Yeah.
So we had 2 out of form players each going into this.
Yeah.
Right, let's start with your team then.
Cool.
So you picked Dunk at the back for Brighton, who of course lost 1-0 to a Jordan Ayew goal from Crystal Palace.
Ayew and Benteke combining to wipe out my Sam versus Lee clean sheet. Who'd have thought?
And actually, you know, up until that point, they'd looked quite good defensively.
Okay,
so, you know, that was a bit annoying. And then you went with James Maddison, who, I mean, Watford with Leicester without Vardy.
I mean, there's out of form and then there's out of form. I mean, Maddison is so out of form right now. He was, again, a risky pick, but that's what the theme was all about last week. Risky, out of form picks.
Yeah, James wanted us to pick some characters and we certainly did that.
So my combined score was 4.
So excellent score for you this week of 4.
Yes.
Don't look quite so upset about it though, because wait till you hear mine. Right, so I had the wrong Chelsea defender, of course, didn't I? Because I should have gone with Alonso, although I wouldn't have been allowed in because he didn't blank in game week 27.
Sure, yeah, he's in form,
so I went with the Chelsea defender thinking, you know, Bournemouth, they don't score many goals, it'll be alright.
I said to you, Josh King, Callum Wilson on their day can score goals.
Well, yeah, they certainly did that, didn't they? So I had Aspilicueta, who got the grand total of 1.
Yeah, good.
Brilliant.
And who in midfield?
Thanks for that, Cesar.
Then
I wanted Dele Alli, but if you remember, you wouldn't let me have him because he got 1 clean sheet point back in game week like 25.
Them's the rules.
So because he'd had a 3 and not a 2, I wasn't allowed in, which meant I had to then couldn't have Bergwijn either for that same reason. So I ended up with Lo Celso, who also got 1 solitary FPL point.
So in Sam versus Lee this week, it's 4
versus
and 2.
I mean,
what amazing scores!
Well, look, what it's proved is that the out of form players are still out
of form. Yeah.
So be warned if you're thinking about getting on any of the out of form players. They're not on good form.
Don't pick a player that's injured like me. Absolutely ridiculous.
Or me, for that matter.
So amongst all that madness, I get the point.
So you get the point, which actually now means for the first time this season you are winning Sam versus Lee 6.5 to 5.5. So
boom, yes.
I am now on the chase. Which
I thought I was ahead of you before. Have I not just extended my lead?
Were you?
I got a feeling I was ahead before and I've extended. You need to check. You don't have a point.
All right, well, maybe it's 7.5, 5.5.
I think it's 7.5. Get in the comments below. Somebody tell me the proper score.
Well, either way, you're winning anyway. We'll confirm next week as to how many you're winning by, but you are winning.
Don't start just not counting the scores because you're behind.
I'm not used to being behind you at FPL.
Oh, okay, good.
Shots fired. Okay, so let's move on from the shambles.
That shambles, yeah.
That was
absolutely.
Game Week 28. And move into Game Week 29, which can only be better. From a FPL
have you seen the theme?
View, from a Sam versus Lee point of view, from an everything point of view, it can
give us the
only
theme.
be better. This week's theme comes from Notorious Nerd, who says, players in a relegation fight. So players playing in the bottom 5 teams currently in the Premier League. So that gives us Norwich, Aston Villa, Bournemouth, Watford, and West Ham.
Okay.
Now, the interesting thing to note, when I was going through the league table and looking at these, I was like, all right, okay.
We've all got something to fight for. So,
all got something to fight for. Watford and Bournemouth, positive results. West Ham, positive results. I was like, this might not be too bad. Then I looked at the fixtures.
Tough.
All 5 of them are away from home this
weekend. Read out the fixtures, go on. For those 5 that are bottom of the league right now, they're all away.
All away. So Norwich go away to Sheffield. Very tough. Very tough.
Yeah.
Aston Villa go away to Leicester. Not easy.
Okay, yeah.
Bournemouth have the worst of them all. They're away at Liverpool. Very tough.
Okay. Expecting a reaction there from Liverpool,
especially with a wounded Liverpool.
Yeah.
Watford away at Crystal Palace.
Okay.
And West Ham away at Arsenal. So within that, you've got Leicester, Sheffield United, and Arsenal all arguably fighting for Europa League or Champions League spots.
Yeah.
You've got Liverpool who are yet to solidify that title. I mean, it's all but got their name engraved on it, but they haven't got it yet. So they're still playing. Crystal Palace are the only opposition there that haven't really got anything to fight for at this stage because they're not going to get relegated. They're not going to make the Champions League or the Europa League spot. So that's potentially the only one. But of course, standard Sam versus Lee rules apply. So 1 defender, 1 midfielder, 1 attacker, and only 1 from each team. So if you pick a Norwich defender, you can't then pick Pookie as well.
Okay. Shall I kick us off with my defender then?
Go on, go for it.
So, Norwich are away at Sheffield United, which of course is a tricky game, but then all 5 of those that you just mentioned are tricky. So you've got to go somewhere. And I wanted to save some of my other teams for some of the other players. So I've gone for Max Aarons away at Sheffield United. Now, of course, a lot of the focus has been on Lewis for the last game week because he obviously scored a bit of a belter against Leicester at Carrow Road last game week on that Friday night. But people are kind of overlooking a little bit the fact that Max Aarons still got 11 points in that game week. So Jamal Lewis with the 15-pointer, absolutely brilliant. But Max Aarons, 11 points last game week and is he's the nailed-on pick there. There's no doubt about it. He is the safe pick in that back line. Now, I say safe from a selection point of view. From a clean sheet perspective, it's going to be tough to go to Bramall Lane and get the clean sheet. Now, Sheffield United aren't exactly free scoring, but they are good at home. There's no doubt about it.
So you're hoping for a 0-0 draw?
Well, listen, if Max Aarons and Jamal Lewis on that side, I noticed in that Leicester game that they were getting the ball wider to those players. Their heat maps in that game against Leicester were pretty good. They obviously chose to, their tactic was to stretch that Leicester back line, and they did so, and they found good spaces in behind. So if you want to back one of the Norwich fullbacks, it would be a bit of a punt for this game week, no doubt, but in Sam versus Lee, I'm going to go for Max Aarons, not least because I think there's some attacking return there, but potential for a clean sheet as well, because Sheffield United, out of the fixtures that we've described, are not exactly free scoring. So Max Aarons for me.
You ran an interesting comparison as well, didn't you, on the Scout website in the members area between Lewis and Aarons. While you decided which of the 2 that you were going to, I was spying. So some good heat maps over there if you want to go and have a look at those for the last few weeks.
Actually, the stats in the members area, they're pretty close, those 2 guys, away from home, pretty close in terms of attacking intent. I've just gone for Max Aarons because of that consistency it always gets in the team. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going with Matt Targett in defence this week.
We're scraping the barrel a bit here, aren't we?
But we are picking from the bottom. We've gone from out of form players to the bottom of the league. So they're not exactly giving us, pick the top 5 clubs or the best players' forms.
Themes for next week, please, guys. Get in the comments below. Themes for next week. Something where we can pick some good players, please.
Liverpool versus Spurs. You got to pick Spurs. I'll pick Liverpool.
Oh, could be good. Who's your defender?
Right, so it's Matt Targett. Now, obviously, had a difficult result in the cup this weekend. But actually, I think Aston Villa can take a lot of heart from that game. They didn't get embarrassed, They stayed in it till the very end and actually could have got something right at the death, which could have taken it into extra time.
Whose header was that? Claudio Bravo with a good save. Yeah.
So they weren't embarrassed by it, and given that Manchester City are Manchester City and their record in the League Cup of late is what it is over the last few seasons. So I think they'll take some heart from that, and that will bode well going into the Premier League again this weekend. I'm expecting a little bit of bounce from that. Now, Matt Targett, strangely, and I didn't really necessarily read this until I was looking at the bottom five's defence, he's actually had some quite good goal threat so far this season.
Goal threat?
Yeah, so he's got 3 assists and a goal so far.
Assists, has he really?
Yeah,
okay. It's gone a bit under my radar, that one.
Had mine, to be honest. Now, I think also we should recognise at this point that Leicester are pretty poor attacking wise at the moment. Obviously,
really out of form, aren't they?
Yeah, and obviously, we've talked about Maddison and Vardy earlier when we did our review of last week, so we know that those guys aren't on form. But in the last 3 games, Leicester haven't scored at all, and in the last 4 away games, they've lost my stat. I've only conceded 1. They've only scored 1 in the last 4. So
as you were thinking about that, your iPad went off and you were like,
Anyway, we're back. So that's only 1 in the last 4. So actually, I think when you were thinking about Leicester assets, I don't necessarily see them getting a lot of goals.
1 goal in the last 4 away.
Yeah.
Is that the stat?
Yeah.
Interesting. And you go back to what I said before about Norwich finding space and men in behind with those wider balls out to Aarons and out to Lewis in that Norwich game. If Targett can be exposed to that same sort of space, then it could do some damage.
So I'm going to go with Targett on the basis that Leicester aren't scoring a lot of goals. He also has some goal threat. Okay. So if the clean sheet does go, then maybe there's some attacking potential there as well, because Leicester aren't exactly great defensively either at the moment.
Okay, and Ndidi back for Leicester might just make them a bit more cohesive going forward, might benefit Vardy in that transition through the line.
Well, let's see, because he only came on for 30 minutes in the game this week on Friday night. Then obviously there's the FA Cup game in midweek, which we'll see how Leicester line up for that and whether Ndidi gets the start and whether Vardy's back and recovered from his calf injury. Because if Ndidi's not up to full 90 minutes, then Leicester are going to be the same sort of scene we've seen for the last few weeks, in my opinion.
Okay, very good. Well, let's move to midfield then. You want to go first, or shall I?
I'll give you mine if you like.
Go on then, midfielder, let's go.
I'm going to West Ham for this one.
Snodgrass again, your old favourite.
No, I've already had him, so we'll let Snodgrass have a rest. We'll sit this one out for Snoddy. And I'm going with Fornals.
Pablo Fornals, okay.
Now
That's an interesting pick.
Yeah, so we have been, as FPL managers, West Ham fans, everyone's been kind of waiting on Fornals to just turn up this year. I think there was a lot of expectation.
Hype, yeah.
There was, and I think that hype was there for all of West Ham attacking wise, with Fornals, Felipe Anderson, Yarmolenko, Lanzini, Haller. There was all of that kind of hype around their attack. Not necessarily so much about the defence, but the attacking assets in that West Ham team was a lot of hype. None less than for Fornals. Now, pretty nothing really. He's not really done anything.
We're still waiting for him to come to the party,
on fire.
Really.
Yeah, I mean, he's had no return since game week 20, where he did get a 10-point return in game week 20, and then he'd had nothing until game week 27, where he got a goal.
Yeah,
and then in obviously game week 28, he got 2 assists. So the last couple of game weeks, we've started to see a little bit of form from him. We've also started to see a little bit of grit from West Ham in those last couple of games. Yeah. That game against Liverpool, I know they lost it, but I felt like it gave them some fighting spirit, and I felt like they went into this game against Southampton in game week 28 feeling like, right, we have to win this game if we want to give ourselves the best chance. They
had to beat Southampton.
Especially given that Norwich had won on the Friday evening. There was a real sense of essential win.
I think they'd have got relegated had they lost that game.
I think so too. So I'm going with Fornals, also on the basis that Arsenal, who they play against, have only had 2 clean sheets in the last 6. So they're not exactly, setting the world on fire with their defences. Arsenal going forward, totally different.
Okay.
They're really good going forward right now, but defensively not so solid. So Fornals.
Maybe a bit of a change in mentality in Moyes' boys at the minute. I wonder whether
they changed something, didn't they?
Well, I sort of wonder whether he's played quite defensive. He's played quite conservative up to now in his tenure, his re-tenure, if that's the right word. His time back at West Ham. I wonder whether he's getting to the point of the season now where he's just like, we got to win. We got to go for these games.
They have to, don't they?
We've got to go for these games. Because there's one thing I do like Pablo Fornals. One thing he doesn't do is track back. It's no doubt.
I don't need him tracking back.
From an FPL perspective, we don't need him tracking back, but from a West Ham perspective, sometimes you do need that track.
Yeah.
He doesn't do it, so maybe Moyes is kind of letting the horses run free to coin a... Who did that? That was a Mourinhoism, wasn't it, from last year? So there we go. Midfield for me is an easy one. This is why I wanted to save my Watford space. Ismail Assar looks like a star in the making, in reality, in FPL. He looks like he's got all of the underlying attributes that we would hope and expect a decent FPL asset to have. Now, I noticed he actually, he's pretty good friends with Mane at an international level, I think. So he kind of looks up to Mane a little bit as a mentor. Now, if you're going to look up to anybody, looking up to Mane is not a bad person to aspire to be like.
Sure.
Certainly got the speed, certainly got the ability. Under Pearson was kind of unleashed a little bit, right? Had a bit of a slow start to the FPL season, no doubt about it. But was unleashed under Pearson, was a whole new player. Then, of course, got the injury, which kind of curtailed him, really. He just kind of went completely off the radar. And he's come back from that injury and he seems to have hit the ground running a little bit. Now, what I will also say is that early on in the season, Deeney wasn't readily available for Watford. And I think that had an impact on Deulofeu and Sarr and some of the other players around him.
Yeah.
Now that Deeney is there, he is causing havoc. And we saw that against Liverpool at the weekend. He gave Lovren so many issues, didn't he? And he causes those centre-halves. He gives them something to think about, Deeney. And he creates space and he creates time for the likes of Deulofeu and Sarr and Doucouré, actually, to do the business. Now, Gerard Deulofeu got injured in that game, got taken off. It looks reasonably serious. Haven't seen any reports to suggest how long exactly he's out for, but it looks serious. So because of that, maybe the manager now is going to be looking towards Ismail Assar to be the game winner, to be the one that's going to get those goals. So I'm going to go with him. He's bang on form. Why not? I think Ismail Assar looks like an absolute FPL star in the making.
Well, talking about unleashing havoc then, I unleashed Deeney on you as my
straight over
choice.
to Deeney, right? Okay, good. Okay.
I think it makes most sense in the way that you've used Sarr to use Deeney as from the striking position.
Okay.
I think
it's a tactical pick.
Potentially, but I also think that Deeney, I can't own him from an actual FPL point of view because the last time I did, he got sent off. But I do...
That double game week?
Yes. But I do rate him in terms of his FPL... I rate him as an FPL asset. I think he's got good potential, particularly at the moment. This is the time of the season where I like to bring clubs that are in the relegation zone, there or thereabouts, into my FPL teams because it's at this stage that they really start to fight with 10 game weeks to go.
He will literally fight, though. He's just as likely to get you a red card.
Which we saw last year. But I think, with him, he is the heart and soul of that Watford side. He is absolutely the heartbeat. And we saw Watford lost their way when he was off injured. And then since he's come back, he's kind of rejuvenated them. He's got 3 returns in the last 5 game weeks, so he's on good form. Completely bullied Lovren in game week 28. Was absolutely kind of the focus of destroying that Liverpool defence, which we don't say very often. Now he's playing against a Palace defence this week who are leaky, usually. Not in game week 28, actually, away at Brighton, but usually they aren't the best.
Clean sheet last game against Newcastle?
Yeah, but usually they aren't the best in terms of... they've had so many injuries in that back line. There's been so much change going on for Palace this season that we haven't necessarily seen them at their defensive best, because in seasons gone by that was what Palace were great at. You would bank on Palace. You'd always have a Palace defender, wouldn't you? Because you'd bank on them to keep clean sheets. This season, with the injuries that they had, I just don't see that as much. So Deeney is.
I can see him giving Cahill nightmares actually the weekend, because Cahill and the boys at the back there for Crystal Palace aren't particularly quick, and I think that he'll keep them occupied while Ismail Assar does the business. That's what I'm predicting.
So go on your striker.
My striker is Samatta from Aston Villa. So only 3 games in, right? So we haven't seen that much of him, but he did score in his debut, and he did score in the Carabao Cup final against Man City. What's been interesting about his introduction to that Villa side is that actually up until his introduction, Villa were just like, it's all Grealish, wasn't it? It was just like, if it's going to happen for Villa, it's going to be Grealish. Now, Grealish is still obviously a good pick for us in FPL, and those of you that have got him in your team, have a look at the fixtures. I don't know, I took him out of my team last week because I think he obviously had the blank last game week, and now he's got some difficult fixtures coming up. But on his day, he still can do the business. Yeah. Now, I think some of the introduction of Samatta has taken the pressure off somewhat, off of Grealish, and now the players are looking to Grealish and Samatta as a bit of a front two there, a bit of a dynamic duo up front.
A bit of pairing going now, haven't they?
They've just got a good understanding, which given they're only 3 games in, that's a pretty good thing to have established already. So I do like the look of him. It's a bit of a punt, no doubt about it.
I rate him.
But again, they've got, as you were mentioning before, away at Leicester. And we know that Leicester have been not just struggling for goals right now, but they are struggling a bit defensively.
Yeah.
Of course, Ndidi coming back is going to make the difference, you'd think. But I still think that Samatta will get in amongst the likes of Soyuncu and those players at the back there and give him issues. So Leicester look a little bit out of form. Villa not exactly in peak form. But I do think, as you said before, they can take some heart and some spirit from that Carabao Cup final defeat. I know they got defeated and they were second best for a lot of that game, but if
people
they play,
expected it to be bad, and it wasn't bad.
If they take that attitude into games like Leicester away, then they can get something at the King Power. And let's face it, they do now need to get something. I worry that the Foxes, Leicester, might be going a little bit through the motions a little bit since the winter break, thinking maybe we got this, maybe we just need to cruise through to a Champions League spot. And I wonder whether they might need to change their mentality a little bit. But Villa and the guys that are down there in the relegation zone, absolutely not like that right now. They are fighting for their lives, and I do expect Samatta to come to the fore. So there we go.
I think he's a really good
remind us of your 3.
All right, so I'm going with Target this week. I'm going with Fornals this week. And I'm unleashing the beast that is Troy Deeney up front.
The beast, all right. Well, I'm going to go with Max Aarons at the back. I'm going with Jamal Lewis, who I think is going to be... he's going to be the one to win it for me. He's the jewel in the crown this week. Jamal Lewis, and then Samatta up front for Villa away at Leicester. So get in the comments, guys. Let us know who you think is going to win this week. Is it Team Sam or is it Team Lee? For the teams in the bottom 5, all with very difficult away fixtures. It's going to be a difficult one. Let us know in the comments as well what you want us to do next week. Please give us an easy one. Oh my God, that's 2 really hard ones in a row. 2 great suggestions from you guys in the comments the last couple of weeks. Get in the comments below. I've won. Hard as you like, guys. Get in the comments. Get in the comments. Let us know what you want us to talk about, which players you want us to pick from, which pool of players you want us to pick from for next week's Sam versus Lee. Until then, we'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.